my contact information with you if you're interested. Our main objective is to maximize waste reduction. We want to maximize reuse, and of course we want to maximize recycling to minimize our reliance on disposal at sanitary landfills, all while protecting public health and our environment. Some of my main responsibilities are to seek environmentally sound and economically viable options for solid waste, for all types of solid waste management alternatives. I help to recognize and promote waste production, reuse, and recycling practices with our McHenry County Solid Waste Advisory Committee members who represent a wide variety of industry. So you might have seen the McHenry County Green Guide, or pardon me, McHenry County Green Awards come out on the press releases every spring. And then we take those winners of those recipients and then we'll have them display at different events throughout the course of the year to recognize their achievements. And then I also have a responsibility on the enforcement side that the waste management practices are compliant with applicable regulations, federal, state, and local. Next. Our county has a vested interest in a solid waste plan. The last 5 years we had an aggressive recycling rate goal to go to 45% and to reduce our pounds per capita per day waste disposal, which is the amount of waste you and I put in our garbage can every day, and reduce that by almost a half pound. We have 3 main sectors really in our county. The residential sector is our largest. We have commercial, institutional, and then we have construction and demolition sectors. I take a look at hauler data on a biannual basis. I also have voluntary recycling surveys that go out, and I calculate that data to help see where we're at with our recycling percentage rates and our pounds per capita per day disposal rates. We also try to use this plan to identify mechanisms, both regulatory and initiatives that we can achieve these goals. Next slide. So mainly, we condense the mechanisms into the six parts here, our solid waste hierarchy that we look at here locally as well as across the state of Illinois. First one is source reduction, where we minimize the waste that we produce. So like Kim just did, having a reusable straw, reusable eating utensils, that's not generating any waste to begin with. It's reusable, right? It's a great source reduction mechanism. We want to consider as consumers purchasing less bulky products, maybe longer lasting products that are made of recycled content material. We can really push that envelope as consumers, believe it or not. Order what you need for a project. When you overbuy, now you're left with what? Stuff. And now you gotta figure out how I'm gonna get rid of that stuff, right? So order what you need for projects. Paint's a huge example of that. Figure out the dimensions of the room you need to paint. Talk to the paint store representatives. They're glad to help you calculate the gallons of paint that you need for your project. Reuse. Does it really need to be thrown away? Question it. Stop, think, and then figure out, is it a disposable or is it a recyclable? Repurpose it. Clothing. Usable clothing goes to your Goodwill stores, Home Sparrow stores, and other people can gladly use it. It doesn't really belong in the whole thing. Even if it's torn or filthy, there's some options out there that you have those clothes bins where they're able to recycle those into textiles like wiping cloths for garages and stuff. So that's examples of reuse. Recycling is changing an item into another usable product, like an aluminum can back into an aluminum can, paper to paper, sometimes denim into insulation. Those are examples of recycling. Rebuy. This is an important part of closing that recycling loop that we always see, right? The triangle with the green arrows. When we buy products made from recycled materials, we're helping to close that loop. Why are we doing it in the first place, right? they're making a product, let's go out and buy that product. There's alternatives to waste disposal out there as well. We have waste to energy options. Anaerobic digestion is kind of up and coming. Incineration is, we have a couple of those. The nearest ones are near St. Louis, and the other one's in Indianapolis, Indiana, where they incinerate waste coming in there. A lot of that waste is, I took a tour there several years ago. When there's recalls and grocery chains and things like that, they take that material in. They also use it for disposal of our waste medications because it's the safest alternative we have for that. And lastly, landfills. Landfills, we do need them because not everything is currently recyclable, but we do want to extend the life expectancy of landfills and recycle what we can, what we're able to. Our haulers right now will typically use a transfer station, municipal solid waste transfer station located on Virginia Road in Crystal Lake, Illinois. You guys know where that's at? Virginia Road Transfer Facility. It's a real great operation. All of our garbage typically goes there. And then it gets transported about 85 miles out to Morris, Illinois, to a landfill out there. So the longer the transportation duration, sometimes that cost can go up to us. So we have to be really looking at the source reduction, reuse, and recycling aspects of that hierarchy. Next slide. So let's get into, after that boring stuff, let's talk about material recovery facilities. This is a really neat opportunity for a lot of us this year to take a tour of what they call a MRF. Sometimes you'll hear people call it a MRF. It's either a material recovery facility or it's a material recycling facility. You'll see it both ways. Here's where the facility will separate and prepare incoming recyclable materials for the market and end user manufacturers. And they use a combination of sorting equipment, labor, they densify the recyclable materials, they bale it, and then they transport it to these end users to make recycled content products. There's 4 main MRFs in our area. Waste Management Recycle America is the most commonly used one for us. Groot Industries has one in Elk Grove Village. There's Lakeshore Recycling in the Chicagoland area and Resource Management in the Chicagoland area. But we primarily will use Waste Management Recycle America located in Grays Lake. Recyclable materials are impacted by the commodities market. For example, we experienced a real high recycling rate in around 2012, and then it dropped because we are speculating that the metals market really fell. And when the prices of commodities fall, the recycling kind of coincides with that. I'd like to also not only just focus on the economics of it, but also the intrinsic value of it, where through our demand and our valuing of where we live and how we manage our public health and our environment, I think that we can reflect those positive values and make those changes, make more positive changes in that area. Biggest thing with recycling in the curbside carts that you guys usually get, you want to keep the material clean and dry. It doesn't have to be washed in the dishwasher or anything like that. Just lightly rinse out your food containers is fine. And then when in doubt, when you're questioning what can be recycled or what can't be recycled, contact your waste hauler first. I will leave with you today flyers that we try to update annually on recyclable materials, because we want to end up reducing contamination that we're starting to see come into these MRFs. And of course, you can always call me with any solid waste questions. I'll be happy to get you stepping in the right direction. If I don't know the answer, I will get it. Next slide. I know there's a little bit of glare. I apologize, there's the glare of the ceiling lights from the tour, but it was a really nice display case of the general overview of the Waste Management Recycle America Center there in Grays Lake, Illinois. I don't have a, that's okay, I don't, bear with me here. Up at the top portion here, you have like the tipping floor area. So all the single stream recycling that we put in our carts, the haulers bring it here, gets on the tipping floor and it goes through all these different conveyor systems and sorting systems. You know, plastic container sorting, there's optical sorting, eddy machines, which get into the physics part of things, so I'll let the physicists deal with that description. But the eddy machine was really neat because as all this material was flowing fast on these conveyors, the eddy machine purposefully produces some kind of magnetism for aluminum cans, and these cans are just individually just shoot right out of this conveyor right into where they needed to go. It was, you had to be careful, but it was really neat to see that up close. They have newspaper sorting conveyors, glass breakers, screens, and then they have the balers where they bale the commodities, and then their shipping dock. So it was just a neat setup. It's a fairly large MRF, and I'll get into their specs a little bit later on in the discussion here. And again, if there's non-conforming waste, what they call it, or waste that doesn't belong in those recyclable materials, they do have a designated area for that, so that waste can get properly disposed of in a sanitary landfill. That's what we want to try to minimize. Next slide, please. This is a vantage point looking downwards from a catwalk. It's a very tall facility when you're up there. And you're looking down at all the mixed paper and plastic containers that flow through the facility almost every day. Next slide. This is the newspaper sort conveyor. You can see it's got all the mixed papers, and they have laborers that go through and pick out things that don't belong, like plastic bags and non-conforming waste out of those materials. And these conveyors are moving relatively quickly. Next slide. Here's the baler portion of the facility. These are the aluminum cans getting baled and are getting ready for transport to end user markets. Next slide. This one was neat. This is where they separate out containers and such. Very large discs on these mechanical, they constantly are mechanically winding. And you can see why that would be important to not have plastic bags and such get into the waste, into the recycling aspect, because it'll get tangled up in this equipment and causes a lot of downtime. Next. And again, a vantage point looking towards the baled commodities area of waste management. It's Recycle America. Here we have, your corrugated paper, your corrugated cardboard, paper, metal, glass, and plastic containers, ready to go for transport. Next slide. And this was on our way out of the tour. Here's your corrugated cardboard and some chipboard in there, but it's separated out from all those conveyors going every which direction. And then over here, you have just almost as tall a pile of plastic bags that didn't belong there. And that's all stuff they got to take care of. And they try to recycle what they can, but some of it ends up getting landfilled. It's just important to remember not to put the material into your curbside cart. And remember to use a reusable bag, when you shop, and decline a plastic bag while you're shopping. I mean, we don't need a plastic bag for a pack of gum or a candy bar, right? I usually just take and throw it in my purse, but just think simple stuff like that. It sounds silly, but it's really profound impact later on. And this photo was from Waste Management, where they're starting to see this material end up incoming from the single stream recycling carts that you and I put our recyclables in. So this is the material they don't want in those carts. We don't want tires, we don't want propane canisters, those are a fire safety hazard. Tires, leave them at the retailer when you purchase new tires. Don't leave them out in the elements because they become suitable harborage for disease-causing mosquitoes. The automotive or marine type lead acid batteries, there's outlets for that. Automotive service areas will take those. It's hard to see here. This is the next topic we're starting to talk about in Illinois, just in kind of its infancy stage, believe it or not, but sharps and needles. The residential sector, the state of Illinois looks at sharps and needles, at diabetics or folks with allergies. When they generate that, it's looked at as general household waste in Illinois. So it can go in your regular trash, that's where it should go right now. But there's some measures we can take to make it more safe for the hauler or for somebody that's in the waste industry, right? You want to put those in a rigid plastic container. It could be a laundry bottle, coffee canister. You want to mark it sharps, do not recycle, and then duct tape the lid on it. Put that in your regular garbage. It does not belong in the recycling. Yes?
I thought it was an EPA violation to put any needles in the waste, in the garbage, even if it's
Not for residential generators.
So for residential generators only?
Right. If it's a clinic, a hospital, veterinary clinic, they have what they call PIM regulations,
Right.
which is potentially infectious medical waste regulations.
Right.
So that's the regulated sector right now.
But you can also just take your sharps container back to the, the pharmacy where you got the container in the first place and exchange it for another one, and they'll dispose of it.
Have you yourself had a good experience with that? Because some folks, their pharmacy or their doctor will not take them back.
Really?
The same thing. Some people won't take it back. It's random, unfortunately.
Yes.
CVS, I've heard, is a little bit better than Walgreens, but it's still kind of like the CVS in McHenry. I know will, but the CVS in Algonquin doesn't. It's just wacky.
That is wacky.
Yeah. So like I said, there's some early discussions on it. Hopefully we'll start seeing some voluntary programs in the near future with better handling.
I have a question. If we
Yes.
break a glass, what's the best way to dispose of it? What would they prefer?
A drinking glass?
Because I hate a drinking, like glass, now you have broken glass. I hate to put it in the garbage, but I'm not gonna just put it in the recycle bin, because then it's sprinkling shards of glass. I usually wrap it up in newspaper and put it in the garbage, because I don't know, but I'm wondering.
It's a great question. Usually they're looking for glass bottles and jars,
Right.
not necessarily
It's
glassware. And it's how it's made. And
Well, I'm just saying, even if I broke a jar,
yeah.
I can't just put broken glass
Yeah.
into the shower.
Well, it could end up getting broken anyway in
That's
transit.
Right.
Okay,
With the tonnage that they're hauling. I mean, that's a.
you're right, when they
possibility.
do it out on the street, I'm sure.
And I'm sure you guys have seen the recycling truck come at least once in your life, and it looks like the garbage truck, but it's really not. It is separate, because the haulers do make a little bit of money off of it, so it's in their best interest to keep those materials separate. Plus, we have ordinances out there that say they have to separate recycling from garbage. So, and they might even use the same kind of truck for yard waste separate too, take that to a composting facility or transfer station. So what we've been seeing now, I've gone to a few seminars. US EPA last fall started a discussion of this contamination issue at the MRFs. And so I just wanted to, again, thanks for the opportunity to share some of these non-conforming waste streams that are coming in there that we want to minimize. And right now they're seeing about an 18% contamination rate. To them, that's pretty high. That should be closer to 12 or 10, ideally. So we just want to have an opportunity to maybe do more of these down the road to educate residents on what goes in your curbside cart and what does not. Yes. Sorry. These are all the recycling benefits. I think the benefits clearly outweigh any barriers. Really with residential, we have it pretty easy. You can put it out at the end of your driveway or at the road edge and the hauler comes and picks it up for you. You don't have to really do much more than that and pay your bill. Commercials where we start seeing a little bit of the barriers with how they design the waste corral areas for them, the spacing limitations, those types of issues. But as far as we go with residential, there's a lot of benefits. Waste Management, Recycle America, just some fun facts for you guys. They do operate 6 days a week. They operate at least 22 hours per day. They process an average of 500 tons of recyclables per day. And then they can transport about 25 tons per transfer trailer that goes out to end user markets. So that's just one facility. They employ labor, and it's one of the older facilities, and I believe they're on YouTube. You can check it out. I think it was on Dirty Jobs. They were showcased on YouTube there, Dirty Jobs, so check it out.
We actually have that segment of that video running in the science hallway. So if you walk down the science hallway, there's those two videos, a couple videos that run all the time. The one that's a recycling facility is Grass Lake.
Yes. So that ends my presentation. Thank you guys for your time, and I'm open to any questions now, or if you want to wait till Kim has her discussion,
Well,
we can have
you kind of covered everything. And I mean, I could talk about some of the recycling things that we talked about last time, but do you guys have questions for Christie? Because really, that's where I go with my questions, so.
Yes.
I do have a question. What is McHenry County doing, or are they moving forward with a tax on any like plastic or paper bags? I heard that was in discussion.
Go ahead, but not at the county level. Maybe more at the municipal level, but.
Yeah, Woodstock is the only one that's close-ish to it. They
Right.
have a proposal, but they haven't done anything with it yet. But on the state level, there is legislation that's being bantered about that would usurp anything else that's going on. So if Woodstock put maybe a 10% tax in place, or we like to say fee, not tax. Tax has a whole bunch of other stuff that goes along with it, but anyway, they put a 10 cent in, and then the state were to do one that was only 5 cents, Woodstock would be able to retain that 10 cents fee, but at any rate, but they don't do anything, they have to do the 5 cents. But this legislative session, it's getting a little bit more traction, but I don't know, we'll see. I mean, the Chicago bag tax was such a fiasco and ended up being such a mess, and they had to undo it and redo it a couple of times,
Right.
and I don't know that the state is all that anxious to take that on again. But there is legislation that's gotten further than anything else, so we'll see. But
Yes.
I had a question about milk cartons, not the plastic ones, but the paper ones.
Yes.
Can they be recycled? I mean, a lot of them have this symbol on it, but can you?
Yes, it's my understanding, I'm also part of the Illinois Recycling Association on the board of directors, and one of the president actually works with a company that goes to different MRFs and asks those very questions, and she said, yes, in our region, they will take cartons.
Are those the cartons that appear to me to be wax? They'll take those and
Yes.
wax the milk cartons.
that's relatively new, right, in the last couple of
Yeah,
years. they
yeah,
just
I would
put-
say it was relatively new, yes.
I've been throwing those away.
So you can see that the material can change at any given time, so really the best advice, first call your hauler, because they're the ones that are gonna get impacted first, right? They might, if they keep coming in with contaminated loads, then that MRF's gonna say, hey, we have to start implementing a fee to you guys, because now we have to incur the cost to get rid of it. And then that trickle effect goes down to us, the customers. So call your hauler, and I talk with haulers daily, and they need to, I do their licensure. We have discussions on this. We have some very, very good haulers that are very excited and enthusiastic with doing the right thing, and we love having those conversations together. So go ahead and give them a call. And then, of course, if you don't like the answers, you can call me, and we'll take care of it on our end.
Well, and some of the municipalities, like Crystal Lake, just made a shift from Waste Management, or MDC, to
Yes.
Maryland. And people are all up in arms at first on the Crystal Lake Facebook page, because nobody likes change, right?
Yes.
But, it's interesting because the tide is kind of turning. People are like, oh, it is a little cheaper, and oh, I just got my new containers, and they're a little bigger, and this and that, and then they offer a food scrap collection too, if you want to do that, and then they're offering some electronics collection too. So, it's evolving to respond to customer needs. So what Christy said, I think, is really important, that you do communicate with your hauler if you're unhappy about something.
Absolutely, and like I said, we're constantly in discussions and consultation with one another, so no problem there at all. With the franchising that Kim alluded to, we do a little bit of that at the county level. We have several areas over the past few years since around 2010, where the county has helped residents in unincorporated pockets get some of the luxuries that like the city of Crystal Lake or city of Woodstock or city of McHenry gets with the hauling options. They get garbage, they get their large recycling cart, and they can get their yard waste picked up, and they can get weekly bulk item pickups at a much reduced cost than they ever before. So that we have right now about 7,800 residents that are eligible for the program, and we'll see where that goes. It's been expanding a little bit here and there, slowed down right now, but since you're here, I thought I'd bring that up to you guys. I've had a little involvement with that.
A couple of years ago, you did Wonder Lake food scrap composting, right? That was a pilot project.
Actually, sometimes the haulers will step outside your initial conditions for a bill or a bid. When you go out for bid and you write up your specifications, they'll go outside of that a little bit. It doesn't have any bearing on us, because when we write the bid, we want certain things picked up at the curb to try to keep those costs reasonable for customers and get rid of the largest sectors of the waste stream. But some of the haulers have seen niches. They probably follow the commodity studies that are periodically done in the state of Illinois, and they see, oh my goodness, we have 25% organics going to the landfill, we got another 25% of paper ending up there. Why? That's 50% that can be recoverable. So these haulers find ways to recover that. And we are really lucky. We have a organics composting facility, which is a little bit different than just your typical landscape composting facility, which we do have a nice one of those in our county. But the organics one is just across the street on Darrell Road in Lake County side, Midwest Organics, and they will take the food scraps from a variety of grocers and haulers. So it's nice to have that there. And they recently expanded too.
It's a good time to mention, if you don't have anything else to do on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we are going to have a bid opening for our waste hauler for the next session. Ours ends. We have, FCC has waste management right now to do our recycling and our trash, and their contract ends with the end of this fiscal year. So I worked with Jennifer and Todd and all those guys, and we wrote an RFP to include food scrap recycling, and fingers are crossed. And so Thursday morning we do the bid opening, and we'll see who gets the contract, and then we can start doing it here. So my goal, and it's to be worked out, but my goal is to start over the summer and in the fall to do the behind the scenes, kitchen composting, the leftovers from the cafe, all those kinds of things. Get everybody in the kitchen is on board. Sandy Johnson has been into this since 3 years ago when we proposed it, and it didn't come together. But at any rate, they're ready to roll, and so we'll try and get that in place, and then it's going to get tricky when we try and do it with the whole school. But it'll be fun, and I think it'll be great, and I think it'll have a huge impact on our waste stream. Because when we did an audit a few years ago, it was about a third was food. So
And food weighs a lot.
food weighs a lot. So
And that's how we do our data calculations.
we're going to do
Usually
another
weight.
food waste audit at some point. So we'll do another one. As a matter of fact, the group Jen is doing a webinar. She can get on this on how to do a community college waste audit. I'm like, well, sign me up for that.
It's been so instrumental.
So it's fun. So there's a lot coming down the road. with
Good
that.
for you, Kim.
Yeah,
Yay.
it's been very good. Have FCC, being such a model for the county at an institutional level, and others can look at this and just replicate it. And we want to see that ripple effect, the pebble in the pond effect, right? So that's great.
So one more plug, and then I promise to shush. Green Guide comes out on Sunday, so the 2018-2019 Cameron County Recycling Directory award-winning document. It's very cool. This year we added some cool stuff to it. We've got a section on shredded paper, LED bulb recycling, all new facts and figures. And then the back page, and I meant to make copies for you guys, I will get them to you. The back page is just basically what Christy's been talking about, some of the do's and don'ts of recycling is just kind of a pull-off, save for later kind of sheet with all the info on what goes in your recycling bin and what goes in your curbside, and what goes in your trash bin, and then what to do with the rest of it. It's all inside the Green Guide. So we're really excited about it this time. So That'll be at our website, county.edu/green, or even /recycling takes you right to the green guide. But we like you to go to our website first and say hi, and then click on that.
Yeah.
You guys have more questions for Christy?
Yeah.
Awesome, well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Thanks for your
Christy.
time.
Thank you.